Meet Mike Quasar, stand-up comedian turned reluctant porn director, literally top 5 in the world. And he decided to sit down with Bresh Crew's own Dylan D-Bag Grant and Mark G-Spot Gwynn to talk about the porn industry, where they get into how fluffers aren't real, how you should pay for your porn, how to become a porn director, cuckolding, stepdaughters. I'm not going to read the whole categories list, but you get it. So sit down, shut up, and watch.
Welcome back to the Bresh Crew podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Grant. Along with me, as always, the man, the myth, the hog, Mark Gwynn. And we have a very special guest today, a superstar director by the name of Mike Quasar.
Yeah.
You want to introduce yourself, Mike?
Yeah, I'm a superstar director, Mike Quasar. That might not be my real name. And if you've seen any of my work, don't tell your friends. That's all I can say.
I'm sure you've gotten a lot of people through some dark times and they don't even know it. So I commend you for that.
Probably don't. They probably have no idea.
So how did you get into directing pornography? How did that come about? How do you like, what's your journey to that? Because I don't know how many people just set out to do that right off the bat.
No, nobody sets out to do that. I would be very suspicious of somebody who did set out to do that. I think that person might have some nefarious motives. You know? And I've known a few. So, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm just a Canadian boy who was playing in a band in Toronto, and we weren't going anywhere, and there was nothing happening in Toronto as far as the music scene. So we said, screw it, we're going to move to LA, because this was late 80s, and everything was happening out here, you know, Guns N' Roses and all the bands that were, you know, Sunset Strip was crazy. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to jump on that bandwagon, and we drove from Toronto to LA in the summer of '89. It was a very long drive. And the only reason we drove was because we didn't know anybody in LA. So we figured we're probably going to have to live in my van.
Oh, okay.
Let's drive there. Right. So, and then it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, you're, when you're young and you're just sort of on an adventure, and you don't plan things from day to day, you know? So, you know, long story short, one of the guys was traveling with us. He worked at a strip club in Toronto. And as you know, or may not know, girls that are in adult videos sometimes go on tour as strippers, and they go to your local burlesque establishment. Like in Toronto, I think it was called the Pleasure Dome or something. But I know there's a few from when I was a kid that I used to go to. But anyhow, so she came through, and he worked there as like a busboy or something. And she was only there for the week, and they kind of struck up a friendship. And she's like, well, if you ever move to California, you know, give me a call. If you ever come to California, give me a call. And at the time, he had no plans on doing that. None of us really were sure if we were going to do it or not. But then when we did, so we were in LA for about 2 weeks, you know, living out of a van, which was unpleasant. And one day, it was strangely coincidental. We were walking down Hollywood Boulevard, and we walked past one of those porn arcades, right?
Okay.
Like, you go in and you just put, you know, a quarter in a thing and whatever. And, you know, we're innocent Canadian boys. We've only been in California for 2 weeks. And I'd never really seen porn in my whole life, you know? So I'm like, all right, let's go in and watch some porn. You know, that's something you want to do with all your friends. You know?
Oh, yeah. It's a Friday night.
That's what you do now. You just, you know, you fire up Pornhub and invite 5 of your bros to go, hey. Well, look at that Riley Reid video again tonight. I know you do. Anyhow, so we all go in. The place was disgusting. It was very surreal, you know. And so we came back out where the van was parked, and it's my friend Alex, who was he wasn't actually in the band. He just wanted to come along, and we needed gas money, so we're like, sure. And so he comes out and he goes, holy shit, you're never gonna believe, the girl that I met last year at the strip club was in my video that I was watching. And then he says, he goes, I bet I still have her number somewhere, you know, and this is before you could just put it in your phone, right? So we go to my van, he's digging through all of his like Adidas bag and all this shit, and he finds this book like notepad and he's scrolling through it. And he's like, I found a number. And we're like, okay. And then we went to a phone booth because that's what you did back then, and called, and she answered. And she was like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. I live in the Valley. We're like, we don't know where that is. She's like, well, I'll tell you. And so we drove up to the Valley, and we met her and her husband at the time, who was actually kind of responsible for me being in the business. And he passed away last year, but they just were like the most gregarious, friendly. We've known you our whole life. Our house is your house. Come on in, blah, blah, blah. We're like, I think these people might try to murder us because I don't understand this degree of hospitality.
Yeah.
You know, even as a Canadian, I've never experienced this degree of friendliness, you know? So, but as it turns out, they were legitimately that nice. And then a couple of months later, my mom sent us some money and we got an apartment. And the singer of my band, Matt, who's from Sault Ste. Marie, he got a call one day they're like, hey, do you want to come work on a porn set? And we weren't technically legal. So it was like, well, can they pay us under the table? Like, yeah. And we're like, you know, meanwhile, I was like, yeah, fuck, I want to go work on a porn set. You know, who would want to do that? And so
you don't have to blow money at the arcade anymore. You can enjoy
right. I mean, yeah, exactly. Now we got money to go back and watch some videos and we can see the person. Long story short, a couple of days later, he calls me and he says the PA didn't show up. And I don't know what a PA is, but apparently it stands for production assistant, right? Mm-hmm. So he says, do you want to come down here and work as a PA? They're going to pay you $75. And I was like 20 years old. And I'm like, they're going to pay me? And I'm going to look at naked broads? That sounds like a good deal. So I got in my van and drove to where this production was taking place. And as it turns out, I didn't actually get to look at any naked girls. I was there to help the studio owner reorganize a bunch of stuff. So I had to move a bunch of plants around and move this sofa to that room. And the guy was mean too. He was really not a nice guy. And so that was like, I'm like, well, this is disillusioning, you know?
Was it like set designing, kind of? Like getting
yeah, kind of. I mean, if you want to call it that. I mean, it was, you know, I don't know how much porn you watch, but it's not a tremendous amount of set. White sofa in front of a fucking lamp or something. That's it. But long story short, I ended up working on a shoot where lo and behold, I did have to like, would you like a towel? Here's some personal lubricant for your thing you're about to do. And just like word of mouth, people just started like, hey, I heard you're a great PA. You want to come work for me? I'm like, I am? I mean, yes, I am. I would love to go hand out towels for you for money. Now, keep in mind, it was the perfect job at the time because it was really only a weekend thing. And we didn't want to work because we wanted to play music, right? We didn't want like a 9-to-5 thing. So for a couple of years, it was perfect because, you know, we made enough money to live working on weekends or working on sets here and there, but we still had all the time in the world to like rehearse and do gigs and showcases and everything else. And it was just a weird divergence of things because the music industry in LA started to disappear because that was around the time that grunge was happening and everything was Seattle, you know?
Oh, okay.
And I sort of started working my way up the food chain in the porn business, just by virtue of the fact that my IQ is probably higher than 90, because you don't have to be a very smart person to succeed in porn. You don't. Anyone can do it. I promise you. Just have to find the circumstances that put you in that situation. So it was a couple of years in, and I met a guy that owned a company, and he was a guy from New York. He's like, I like you. You got a lot of spunk. You know, you look like you're a go-getter. You know, but you're Canadian, so I know I can trust you. I want to give you some money to make a movie. I'm like, all right. So that was the first time I actually shot a movie. He gave me like $6,000, which, you know.
Wait, he approached you for the funding? That's the
no,
hardest thing to
get. He gave me the money.
That's the hardest. That's the hardest part.
I know, and
That's
here he was
amazing.
giving me $6,000.
That's fucking amazing.
Now, keep in mind, $6,000 at the time. This is before you could shoot a movie on your phone, right? So, not only did you have to go rent a camera, but just the videotape you rent a big camera package for about $1,000, and the videotape that went in the camera, the beta cams were, I think, $400 for the box, you know? So before you've spent any money on your movie, you've already spent $1,400 just being able to acquire the visuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to go through your crew and, you know, I think I made about $5, but it was like, I don't care. I just wanted an opportunity to do it, you know?
Yeah.
And then after that, people started calling me. They're like, you know, I've made this joke a million other times. Like, the reason why I picked up a camera in the first place is because the director I was working for, I showed up and he was a camera guy, and he used to call me son. I was probably 21. He was probably 45 or something. So he used to call me son. He'd be like, son, my back is killing me today. So today's your debut. And I'm like, excuse me, what? He's like, yeah, I need you to shoot the movie for me. And I'm like, I've been watching him, you know, but I haven't really been watching him. You know, I was just like, all right. So he gives me the camera, and I'm like, and, you know, again, this is back when cameras were big fucking things that sat on your shoulder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I probably weighed about 120 pounds at the time. And so I didn't understand anything about it, but that was the joke I always make, is like, in the real world, like in Hollywood, you don't get to be the camera guy because the caterer hurt his back. You know what I mean? It's like you have to have credentials to be, you know what I mean? But in my case, it was just like, I happened to be able-bodied and he didn't want to lift the camera. So that's literally how my entire career started. And here we are almost fucking 30 years later. And now I'm the crippled old man who can barely pick up the camera.
Jesus
he had somebody that he could call son to take over the fucking family business, you know?
That's fucking insane. So after that day, did you ever do anything besides directing again? Or did you kind of go back and forth?
I went, there was a time when I tried to quit because you know, maybe to the outside, you know, it seems like a fascinating thing to work in porn, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. You know, I wanted to play music. So I felt a little bit like I was getting too sucked into that. I felt like I'm losing my focus on what I really want to do. And so this is a crazy story. So I live pretty close to Universal Studios, you know, in Hollywood here. And they were doing an audition for a musical show that they had. And my ex-wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, was like, you really need to audition for this. I really think you'd do well. And I'm like, fucking, I don't know how to audition for stuff. I play in a metal band, you know, when I'm supposed to, like, we need a headshot, you need all this. I'm like, well, I have none of that. So I'm just going to show up. And so I showed up and auditioned for this show, and I got the audition, which was great. I got a little too cocky because I immediately like called up the people that I was working for, and I'm like, yeah, I'm moving on to bigger and better things. I'm going to be in a musical production, and I'm sure that'll lead to Broadway. And a couple more years, I won't even acknowledge that I knew you people, right? As it turns out, they were only hiring for this particular show because the regular cast was threatening to go on strike, and they just wanted to have a backup.
Oh,
Shit they could throw in there. So I quit every job I had, and start working at Universal Studios, only to have them a week in. They're like, well, we made a deal with the regular cast, with Equity Union and everything. So you guys are just going to be alternates. And I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, well, you're going to work when they can't work. How often do you think that is? Well, it could be 2 or 3 times a month. I'm like doing the math in my head. Each show pays $40. 2 or 3 times a month means I might make $120 in a month.
It might be fucking gas money, but that's fine.
Now I have to go and do some involved math. All right, so I have $120. My rent is $500. So I'm already coming from a deficit here.
yeah.
So then I literally had to eat humble pie and start calling people back up and be like, hey, remember when I told you to go fuck yourself? Well, I was drinking.
Turns out I'm not a star yet.
Yeah, so, and then I sort of, that was slow kind of coming back, and I ended up working as a negative cutter for in Burbank, which is kind of an archaic job now, but at the time it was a very important job.
Mm-hmm.
When a feature film is made and it's shot on film, they make what's called a work print, which is what you edit, and it's what you screen for everybody when it's done. And then when everybody signs off on it, you have your actual camera negative that you shot the film.
Right. Okay.
And then that has to be cut to match the print that everybody approved. So and if you fuck up one thing, you may as well kill yourself, because that's it. That's the negative of the movie. And I fucked up one thing, and then I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too much pressure. So then by then, I don't know. Long story short, the phone just, again, the buildup happened again, and people started calling me, and and then I hooked up with this guy that I still work for. We were kids at the time, but he ended up starting a company. He became very successful, and he sort of brought me along, and that's, at some point I gave up thinking I was going to be a famous musician. I certainly gave up thinking I was going to be a negative cutter, and then then this has ended up being what I do for a living. So there's the whole story. I hope that's fascinating for your viewers.
No, it is fascinating.
Okay, so Mike, step back a little bit so when you get past the PA stuff and your first day working a major job on set, so when you're actually witnessing everything happening, what is that experience like?
It was a little, I don't know. It sounds strange, but I feel like in some, I don't know why, because I wouldn't ever wish this upon myself, but in some strange way, I was meant to be in this business. And
it felt like home.
No, I swear, because like literally the first time I was on like a production, like nothing was overwhelming. And look, it'd probably be different if I worked on like a Hollywood movie as a production assistant.
Right.
I'm sure that'd be a lot of pressure. Porn is it's a lot more corporate now than it ever was, because basically porn is all owned by one company now. But back then it was just, it literally was just like a sort of a conglomeration of people that didn't fit in anywhere else, and so to work on a set was basically like saying, I don't want to work at Walmart, and I'm too lazy to like learn how to do something valuable. So here I am, and then because it's porn, and once you get into it, you're pretty much fucked from ever doing anything that you can ever tell anybody about ever again, as long as you live. It pays pretty good,
Yeah.
Pays a little less now than it used to. But there was a time when people actually paid for porn, so the money was pretty good,
Why is it a little less now? Is it because there's
because
abundance?
When's the last time either of you paid for pornography?
That's true. That's true.
That's the reaction I get when I ask that question.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of similar to the music industry when Napster came, right? Like everyone just started getting free shit, so the musicians kind of suffered a little bit, and now the porn stars suffering for the same reason.
Well, look, it's strange because they're people like me. There's a lot less money, obviously, because our product has been completely devalued. But the girls, on the other hand, some of them are making millions of dollars, and I'm not exaggerating, because they have a platform now where they can work for somebody like me, quote unquote, commercial porn director or porn company, whatever you want to call it. My work immediately gets pirated and uploaded to Pornhub, right? Mm-hmm. Now, 1 million people will see it there. Now, times my scene by however many other scenes she's done for other companies or people like me. Now, all of a sudden, she starts to take off in terms of popularity, and she can start her OnlyFans and all of her other
all this
other stuff. So she's going to make $1 bazillion. I'm not making jack shit anymore, but good for her. She's making money,
Mm-hmm.
Which I shouldn't. It's not like I'm not making jack shit. I'm not making jack shit compared to what I used to make. It's still fine. It's not the worst job in the world in terms of financial. I don't worry too much about stuff. I worry about, because I'm fucking 50 years old now, I worry about what I'm going to do in another 5 years when it's just going to be way creepy for a 55-year-old guy to be on set with a 20-year-old girl. That's at some point that's going to be unacceptable.
Uncomfortable. So you, speaking of your work, you had, I think, 8 nominees in the porn world. Am I correct? Including like 2009, 2012, Best Director for total body of work.
Nominations.
Like just nominations, yeah.
Yeah.
So you've done over 575 films, or you have 575 directing credits. Is that real?
I'm sure I've done way that. I've done 575 films in the last 3 years.
How the fuck do you do so much? Because we filmed a movie. It took us 3 or 4 months to film one 20-minute movie, and you're filming San Fernandino San Fernando Jones and the Temple of Poon.
That was 20 years ago.
Evil Head, which won Best Cinematography, I'm told.
It did. I did shoot Evil Head.
Jai Dixon, Agents 3, Ginger Racial, Grand Theft Anal, the list goes on and on.
Well,
How do you fucking...
Those are some classics, no question. Those are ones that are going to be, they'll be gathered around the fireplace next Christmas talking about those ones.
Your work ethic is incredible, though. How the hell do you...
It's not a work ethic. It's I haven't, what am I supposed to do? It's what it's what I do. And when people call me and go, hey, you want to make money? I go, yes. Really, that's cool.
Shit.
Because, there's it's a very, I don't know, with keeping it in perspective, there's a very small amount of people in the industry that know what they're doing, right? Now, I'm one of those people. But that doesn't mean you can take me out of the industry and put me on, although I have worked on some mainstream sets where I've been really kind of like, what are you people doing? Like, make a fucking decision. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
There's no guesswork. I mean, just so in some ways, porn has, if I did work in mainstream, I think I'd be the most efficient person on that set. But at the same time, it's like, no one's knocking on my door going, hey, we're doing a sequel to that thing that Scorsese did. We heard you're efficient. That's not going to happen. So
yeah.
It is what it is.
Okay, so you made the point earlier about how porn stars can go and make their own money on OnlyFans and all that shit, but it's tougher for traditional cinematographers to market themselves. If you could market the actual porn film industry differently, how would you do that?
How would I market it differently?
Yeah.
Well, again, the problem with the porn industry right now is that virtually one company owns the whole thing. All right. So you have to sort of, whatever's trending on Pornhub is sort of what you end up having to do. And I always say it's sort of like this self-fulfilling prophecy because, 90% of what I shoot right now is something about somebody's fucking stepdaughter or stepmother or some shit like that. I'm like, I don't think anybody actually wants to see this anymore.
Right.
But it's all that's out there now. So it's, like I said, a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, you go to Pornhub and the first thing that comes up on the page is like, I cream pied my stepsister. Can you believe my stepdaughter is such a slut? A football team fucked my stepmother. I mean, it's like, that's all there is. So it's like, you don't have it. And again, also, I don't mean this directed to you two personally, but also to the porn viewer. Fuck you. You're not paying for it. So you get what's out there. You're going to get nothing but fucking stupid fucking step porn forever until you decide you'd like to see something with a little more imagination. And if you want to see that shit, you better fucking pay for it. Otherwise, go fuck yourself and watch My Stepbrother Swallows volume 790 fucking 5,000. Motherfuckers.
So speaking of like whatever the kink of the week is that you have to cater to,
yeah.
What have you ever shot like a cucking one? And
And
what do you think what's the appeal to that? Because we've been talking about it on the show a couple times. What do you think the appeal is?
I don't have any idea.
Thank you.
You have to understand, a lot of what I do, I don't know why I do it. Like, I have no idea why they've asked me to do this. So cuckold is huge apparently. And I, as near as I can tell, I guess if you are a cuckold, it's your fantasy to be humiliated by the one who said I do. I don't get it. Whatever.
Okay.
If you're not a cuckold, I think maybe you just like the fact that there's a hot chick telling some loser to go fuck himself, and that makes you feel better about yourself because you're like, at least I'm not that guy. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That could be it. But I don't. I mean, there's a lot of like, what I've learned over the years is that there's people that are way deep into their fetishes, and I'm not way deep into any of this shit. So I skim the surface of the fetish world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've heard about cuckold videos where, just horrible things are happening, right? So when I have to shoot a cuckold video, I make up some idiotic intro where the husband comes in and she's already with the well-endowed black guy. And he's like, honey, I thought we agreed we weren't going to do this anymore. And she's like, shut up and sit down. And he goes, okay, that's it. That's the extent of my storytelling as it pertains to the cuckold lifestyle,
Right.
I'm
People
sure
are watching porn for the acting.
Well, right. I think the people that are actually into cuckolding might want a little more depth than that, but they ain't getting it from me. So,
let's say I'm your star for the day, right? I'm having problems performing in front of the crew. What's your pep talk to get me going? What's your pregame speech?
I tell you, go home.
That's it?
That's it.
You just don't give a fuck because you're like, it's your problem.
There's a reason why you see the same 10 guys in porn, because that doesn't happen with them. You know, but whenever I hire a new guy, if he's struggling, I'm like, it ain't gonna get any better. Let's just cut our losses. You know, you're not suddenly gonna find this confidence to go in there like fucking a Roman conqueror and destroy this girl. You know, I mean, you're gonna be sitting in the corner. And this is what happens every time. It's always some guy that's like, especially in the era of OnlyFans now, because every fucking boyfriend who's done shit with their iPhone with their girl at home thinks, well, I can do that on set. No, you can't. First of all, you have to deal with me. I'm an unpleasant human being. And, and I'm way over this shit. So the second that I even sense that you're going to have a problem, you can already feel that fucking evil vibe of me going, really, dude? You know? So the guys that I use are bulletproof. I never have an issue with any of them, ever.
Do you guys have fluffers on set?
That's never been a reality.
That's not a thing?
That's a myth.
Okay. Because
Not in the history of porn has it ever happened.
Really?
Yes.
Why is that such a fucking rumor then?
It's like, why did Richard Gere accept a fucking gerbil up his asshole? Nobody knows, but it probably didn't happen.
Speculation.
It's speculation, but
erroneous.
It's been speculated on for 30 years. Richard Gere, the guy likes to have gerbils in his ass. Who told you that? I don't know, but I heard it from a friend.
Okay, Mike, I'm just thinking on my feet here, but if you have somebody that's not able to perform, why not flip that and have them play the other side of the cuck shit where they're the one that has to watch the other girl get fucked by the real performer? Because it's kind of method acting, right?
Then I'd have to have, exactly, but then I'd have to have another gentleman handy.
Yeah.
Usually the cuck is not the one that ever has to get his penis hard. So
Right.
Switch places. Then I just got two guys sword fighting with Taffy. You know?
Okay, so with that in mind, what on a production, what makes a good porn star to work with? Like, I know the criteria has probably changed over the years, but what makes a good porn star to work with aside from the obvious physical features?
Well, if it's a male porn star, they need to be humble enough to shut up. If they're working, because here's the thing. Some of these guys, girls come on set as a girl maybe they haven't worked with before, and they try and pull the whole, my name's, so-and-so, and I've been doing this for like 10 years, so, I can show you the ropes, if you need anything, and, if you ever want to like hang out or blaze, or you want to do some OnlyFans, and they just overwhelm these girls who and immediately put them on their no list. And it's like, okay, so the smart guys keep to themselves. They let their reputation speak for them, and to the point where girls want to work with them, are requesting them, So that's on the guy side. That's the smart thing to do. On the girl side, really all you got to do is show up on time and fucking bring some clothes, and maybe try not to be an asshole. That's about it. But if you're hot, you can probably get away with being
a
lot like the real world.
Exactly like that,
Do you have like a signature shot? Like Spike Lee's got the double dolly thing. Do you got like there's like a nut that hits the lens and then everyone's just like, that's Quasar, like that's classic Quasar? Anything like that?
I think anybody who's paying that much attention to pornography needs a tremendous amount of help. So, no, there's no classic shot. No. There's no Vertigo. There's no nothing like. There's no Jurassic Park sort of like,
no Dutch tilt, nothing.
Dutch tilt.
The only thing I can say this: I like to try and shoot at a very. I like to have as much depth of field as I can get out of a shot, so that it doesn't just look like all the bad porn you've seen over the years, where it's just like bright lights and just a camera that's on f8 just moving around like this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you look at some of I don't know how they're making money, but I suspect it's because it's almost the Pornhub effect, where it's like there's so many people that are watching so much crap, which for most people is fine, but they're, when you think about how much traffic Pornhub gets every day, it's the fourth most trafficked website in the world. Mm-hmm. Even if 1% of those people decide they want to pay for some porn, it's a lot of people, right? And so you have production companies that are spending absurd amounts of money making porn now. I mean, they're spending almost as much as their mainstream counterpart would on the same content, you know?
Holy shit.
We look at companies like Vixen Media Group. There's a company, well, it's still part of Vixen, but it's a company called Deeper. And their director, her name is Caden Cross. She's a former, I mean, these are like, they're hiring mainstream people to come in and, or very experienced people within the industry to come in and shoot that stuff. And they're spending, you know, $100,000, $200,000 easily.
Holy fuck.
You know, I'm not spending that. I might spend that in a year on everything I shoot.
Yeah.
But, you know, but they're in a position where they can obviously make their money back, or at the very least, you know, break even if they're laundering money for something else. I don't know, but, you know, but it's pretty impressive. Even the company, there's a company I work for out of Canada. Well, they're all out of Canada now. They're all in Montreal, but a company that I shoot for occasionally called Gamma Entertainment. And they have, you know, they have some pretty serious expectations in terms of production value, you know, and they give you the money to sort of, not everybody gets that kind of budget, but, you know, they're kind of higher profile stuff that they do. It's like a lot of companies will spend, you know, depending on how much content you're making in 1 month, we're going to spend a bunch of money on this, or we're going to pad it with a bunch of cheaper crap that we can just put out there. You know what I mean? So I'm also responsible for a lot of cheaper crap, just so you know. Probably more so than anybody else.
Okay, so before we started, Dylan and I were talking about a little bit about the traditional film industry in itself, like aside from porn, and how we kind of feel like how do you find the demand for it when there's just another fucking Avengers movie every week, and it's just, or they're just recycling the same shit, remaking the same shit, and it's like, how do you create new demand? So in porn, how do you go about creating new demand for new content in that realm as well? I know it's a different genre and whatever, but how do you go about that?
I mean, I think first of all, you have to have enough disaffected people that are tired of seeing the crap they've been seeing, right?
Yeah.
Then you have to have somebody behind you that has enough balls to say, okay, you know what? We're going to spend some money and try something, and we might lose that money, you know? So you have to have somebody with enough money to be willing to lose it, to really kind of step out of the box and do something cool, you know? Some of the stuff I did with, you mentioned the Evil Dead parody that we did, you know, I did that, I shoot for Joanna Angel a lot, like most of her stuff. And so we did that for, you know, but it was her money, you know? And so she's like, I don't care. I want to make this, you know, Evil Dead's my favorite movie, and I want to spend the money, and I want to have good production value. And I really wanted, you know, because Evil Dead wasn't a big budget movie, right? So it's like, we can make something look as good as Evil Dead. And I think we did, you know? But again, she had to be the person to be like, fuck it, I'm going to put my money up. We're going to do this. Either going to sell or it's not, you know? And it did good.
That's fucking tight. You got to be willing to take those risks. It's hard to find people that will.
Well, no, especially in mainstream. That's why you see nothing but sequel after sequel, because it's a sure thing, you know?
Is that, like, what's the thing that bugs you the most about mainstream or any porn you see now? Like, as a director, like, what's that thing that, like, you see it in all these movies and it's like the same shit and you're just like, this makes me sick.
I can tell you this. It's the dialogue that goes, but you're my stepfather. But you're my stepbrother. We can't do this. You're my stepmother. If I hear that one more fucking time, I will open fire. It'll not be on the news. It'll be terrible what happens.
So do you write too? Do you write also?
I shoot for a company called Wicked Pictures, which is one of the last quote unquote feature companies where we actually make movies, right? It's not just, and so I write those. And
nice.
Last year I sold a couple of the movies I shot. Well, I didn't sell them because I don't own them. They sold a couple of them to Showtime. So that's my, 6 degrees of separation to being a mainstream filmmaker. My stuff's on Showtime. You know?
Right.
But there's not many companies like that anymore. You know, it's all basically scene based, lowest common denominator. Let's get the point across as quick as we can. And I'm okay shooting stuff like that too, because I get to go home at a reasonable hour. You know, I'm not so interested artistically that I want to be on set till 2:00 in the morning so that some guy can jack off into a tissue. And you know, as much as I love the dialogue I just shot, I know nobody's fucking watching it except me. So you know what I mean?
I got you. Has this? I have a porn idea. I don't know if it's been done yet. I'm sure it has. You're on set, so the porn takes place on set, kind of like behind the scenes, some BTS stuff. and the guy's not like performing or whatever, or the girl, vice versa. The director steps in to show him how to swing or show him how he wants it done, and then that's the porn. It's like it's filming it from behind the scenes. Has that been done?
Yeah.
Damn it!
Yes, and I'm trying to think of when I did it.
You did it!
I obviously wasn't in it.
The great Quasar did it, of course.
But I remember, the fuck was it called? God damn it, I can't remember. But it was a long time ago. But I remember it was literally there was a director in the business. He passed away last year. I don't want to mention his name just because he was actually an okay guy. But he was your typical fucking porno guy, just didn't really know what he was doing. He was stereotypical sort of like a, baby, come over here. Let me tell you a couple of things about, just that kind of guy, And then we made a movie where we made fun of him. And in that movie, because he was always trying to fuck the girls. So this is almost like a mirror of a mirror of a mirror. So in this one, the male talent fails. And then he goes, I've had enough. I'm going in. I'm fucking sick and tired of these little punks trying to blah, blah, blah. And then he fails. So then I think we had a third person that played some absurd role. They're like, I'm just here to open and close the studio. And all of a sudden that guy goes in and he's just like fucking hammer. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So yeah, something like that's been done.
Fuck. That's exactly
maybe not exactly the way that you mentioned it, but close enough.
It would have been fucking perfect if you had to drag the kid out of set design as like a little memento to you, right?
Yeah, most of it's been done, and again, even the clever stuff, most people aren't watching it; they're just scrolling through it,
Yeah, just looking for the money shots or whatever.
Yeah.
You had a short career, and I don't know if it's short actually. I have no idea how long it was, but you did stand up for a while.
Well, in order to call it a career, you had to have made money at it.
No money?
I didn't have a career at all in stand up.
But how was it doing stand up in LA?
It was amazing. The problem with doing stand-up in LA is almost like the same problem with being a band in LA at that time. It's like that's what everybody's there to do,
Yeah.
So the competition is fierce, and it's different when you're a musician. You write a song, you bounce it off the people in your band, everybody sort of gets on board, and then you put it out to the world, and hopefully somebody likes it, right? In stand-up, you're 100% alone. So you stand or fall by, and if you don't have a tremendous amount of confidence in yourself, the audience picks up on that immediately. Mm-hmm. So you go out there, that's why my favorite comedian in the whole world, bar none, is Norm Macdonald, a fine Canadian.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah.
Because Norm doesn't give a fuck if he bombs. Like he never has. Like he'll go out there with, and he just commits no matter what, And you have to be that fearless, I really feel, to be a successful comedian, to be that level of success,
If you're bombing, is it better to just take everyone in the room down with you? Like just say, fuck this?
But my problem was when I was bombing, I would exacerbate it because I would just speed up.
Oh, okay.
I'd be like, I'm going to leave no gaps. I'm going to leave no gaps for silence. It's just going to be bum, 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 right?
Yeah.
And the thing that sucked is that, one night you do a set. I remember doing a set at the Comedy Store, destroyed. Like, oh my God, why wasn't I doing this sooner? This is the greatest thing. Just completely destroyed. Literally the next night, I did the exact same set at this club in Pasadena called the Ice House. Crickets. Like, they lugged it he didn't, and I would just go home and just fucking guzzle booze and be like, I'm not gonna leave my house for a week now,
Did you make a couple phone calls first after that first amazing set where you killed? Like, fuck it, I'm good. I'm gonna make it in this.
I learned my lesson on that.
Yeah.
No, the Universal Studios thing was at least what I thought was going to be a paying gig. This was, I knew this was no paying, so we're not paying.
Okay, so going back to the shooting. Now, obviously, being on a porn set is wild enough as it is. You're watching people fucking all different varieties of ways. What's the craziest shit that went on behind the scenes or during the pre or post production? Like, what are some of your wildest experiences with that, aside from the film itself?
There haven't been that many. I mean, that's sort of like either I'm just incredibly pedestrian, or it's grossly exaggerated. I mean, I've been a part of some shoots that were fucking nuts.
You never got yourself in the line of fire, right?
I shot this movie called The Houston 500. It was 500 guys and one girl.
No.
Jesus Christ.
No.
Yeah, you can find it on Pornhub, I'm sure.
500?
Well, to be fair, it was 185 guys, and they went 3 times.
Okay.
So, and I
Okay.
wasn't the only camera guy on it, obviously, because there was a lot of people there. But you know, that's probably the craziest thing that I've been a part of. But you know, as far as like shit that goes on behind the scenes, you know, the other thing that I think has been helpful to me is that the whole time, up until recently, the whole time I've been in porn, I've been married, right? So I've never been able to take part in any debauchery or anything, like, because it's just like, sorry guys, I gotta go home to my wife, you know what I mean? So I'm sure shit happens. I mean, I can tell you this, a lot more stuff that's out of the sort of legendary porn stuff happened in the 90s than happens now, because nothing happens now, you know? But even back then, I can't think of anything that was like, you know, oh my God, I can't believe she's fucking, you know, blowing the pool guy for real. Like the pool guy came over and she's, you know, like.
No, for real.
Yeah, like
All right, so you avoided a bunch of bullshit. That's good.
That's probably why it's so successful. Yeah.
Most people just want to go. I mean, that's my motto, is I just want to go home. You know, it's like I get to set. My motivation is not necessarily to create anything artistic. I want to do the job that I'm being paid to do, but I just want to go home. Just like if you worked at fucking Walmart and you're stocking shelves all day, you're like, I'm going to do the best job I can stocking these shelves. But at the end of the day, I can't wait for it to be fucking 5 o'clock so I can get out of here, you know?
And have you always been that way, or was there like there's times where you're like, I want to
No, I've
be
always
very.
been that way.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And you know, but mostly, you know, it depends, you know, like you get a certain amount of independence. I mostly work for myself, which is great. But, you know, I still work for other people, again, because I don't want to say no to money. But I've gotten to the point where it's like, I know which sets, even if I'm on set for 14 hours, that's fine. As long as I'm working the entire 14 hours, right? If I get there, things are organized, things are scheduled correctly, I'm working, it's fine, I'm doing a job. But you work on some sets you'll get to, and literally 4 hours is spent with a bunch of people that you don't even know what their job description is, arguing about what the first shot should be. I'm like, you guys didn't fucking figure this out yesterday? Because I'm not getting paid by the fucking hour. I don't want to be here 1 second longer than I have to be, you know?
Yeah.
That's very frustrating.
Is
And
there
I try to avoid those shoots now.
Is there storyboards that are involved in any of this, or no?
In some of the higher end stuff, there's been storyboards, absolutely.
You personally, do you?
No, I never did. I never did. But I've always been, A, I've been doing it for so long I can do it in my sleep. B, I'm the director and the camera guy and the editor. So I really don't need to do any of that. It's just sort of like, you know, I mean, there'd be every once in a while, you know, you find a little piece of inspiration that maybe you hadn't planned on. You're like, oh, let's try this shot because that'll be cool. You know, it never has anything to do with the sex, by the way. No one ever looks at a sex scene and goes, I got a very artsy idea for how you can bend her over the fucking wet bar. Like, no, there's no, you know, it's always a part of something else that's, you know, that's not part of the sex scene where you get creative, you know.
Okay, so going back to the production side of things, where you were saying earlier about how when you work in porn, you get this stigma and this reputation where you almost can't tell anybody about your work. If that wasn't the case and you could transition into regular film industry, for lack of a better term, what do you think you could take from your experience with porn to enhance that industry and help them put together better pictures? Aside from them just rewriting bullshit and whatever, like we said earlier.
Well, it's just, you know, there's a good friend of mine, her name is Holly Randall. She's a very famous photographer within the industry. But we had this discussion where it's like people on mainstream sets that laugh at the people that work in porn wouldn't laugh if they saw how, like, planned out, this is what we're shooting, this is next, moving on to here, we're going to break for lunch, we're doing, I mean, it's just, we're done, you know, there's no guesswork. I mean, and it might be because there's less people. I always say that, you know, back in the day before Pornhub, I had a much larger crew, right? But I actually prefer only having a few people on set now. There's less to debate. There's less to, you know, and everybody on set now knows more than just their job, right? So, you know, when I started out, I was the camera guy. Now I know all about lighting. Now I'm a still photographer too. These are all things I had to learn over the years because it was like, you know, the money kept dropping. So it's like, well, I need to learn how to do more stuff. so I can keep making, similar money. So, but that would be mostly it. You don't need 9 people to make a decision about a fucking over-the-shoulder shot. You just need somebody to go, that was cool, let's move on.
So just decision making.
Decision making.
Be
it's like
affirmative.
90% of it, because like I said, I've been on a few mainstream sets that I've just been like, what the fuck? We were there 12 hours. We shot maybe 10 minutes of footage. I worked on a couple of quote unquote reality shows that have no basis in reality whatsoever. And most of the day was producers standing around arguing about shit, and then finally coming up with what they want to do. And then me or somebody else saying, well, that's not going to work technically because this, because you waited so long. Now, if you want that shot, you're going to see every single person's reflection and every light reflected in that window because your eye sees this beautiful, sunset happening. The camera's not going to see that. So now you have to come up with something else. Well, no, we really want that shot. I'm just here to let you know it's not really going to be possible. Unless you want them incredibly silhouetted, then you'll have a beautiful sunset behind them, but they'll be featureless. They'll look like two, like a lot of mainstream producers I found, at least in my limited experience, have no concept of technically what it takes to do something. They're just like, this is what I want.
Yeah.
Without, planning on what time of day it is, where the sun's going to be, all that kind of stuff,
Do you ever feel pissed off that they might look down because you're a porn director, even though you still follow all these same rules as any other director, like the 180 rule, all that stuff that you just mentioned? Does it piss you off a little bit?
I never got pissed off because it was never something that I wanted to do. So it's not like if I was still in a band and my new record was coming out and somebody had shit to say about it, I'd be pissed off. You'd be like, who the fuck are you? And when was the last record you put out? What, then you can do that sort of thing. But, I don't expect them to think I'm talented. Why would they think that? I mean, they're not watching the totality of what I've done. They're watching 2.5 minutes on Pornhub and they're going, yeah, I guess it was in focus. You know what I mean? I mean, my artistry means nothing. All they give a fuck is whether it's in focus. So, and it's totally fine.
Yeah. Having done it so long, are you almost desensitized to it?
Almost. I was desensitized 5 minutes after doing it.
Holy shit.
I mean, legitimately. Today, for example, here, every once in a while, something that reminds me that I'm still a human being happens.
Yeah.
So the last scene that I shot today before I came home to do this with you guys, it was a brand new girl who I'd never shot before. And I'm always worried about that too, because, you never know if they're going to be insane or if they're going to look like their pictures or whatever else. But she showed up and she was really pretty. And so then we go through a whole ritual where it's like, well, what do you want me to wear? And depending on the movie, I always give the same speech. I'm like, well, you're playing his stepdaughter, so you're going to put on your stepdaughter uniform. And your stepdaughter uniform is find a cute top, find a pair of fucking short shorts, put on a pair of fucking sneakers or wedges or whatever, and just look googly-eyed at him when we take the picture. So she laughed. And then she just, because as happens on porn sets, she just took off all of her clothes and went rummaging through her bag. And for a brief moment, I'm talking 10 seconds or less, I looked over at my friend Sean, who does lighting for me. We both went, holy fuck. And then we just went back on about our business. She was really, 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 I mean, she had the most ridiculous, perfect, natural body ever.
Yeah.
And it registered for about 10 seconds.
So it's there, but it's just very, it's deep. It's deep.
Yeah. But I mean, it's so mundane that, I make the same joke. I've been making it for 20 years. It's like, if you're a fat person, you might think that working at a Tim Hortons is the best job in the world. Unless you go there every single day for 30 years. And especially if they tell you, fat person, you can't eat the donuts, then you're just a guy showing up for work, right? So I can't eat the donuts, and I've been looking at donuts a very long time. So,
That's fair.
Yeah.
We have 2 questions from fans.
Uh-oh.
The first one is, what has broken more dicks? Line drives in Major League Baseball or reverse cowgirl?
Reverse cowgirl, hands down. Hands down. Oh, there's been some ugly reverse cowgirl accidents over the years.
Oh my God. Have you seen any?
Not in person.
Not in person? Thank God.
Sort of like people that swap stories about Vietnam, It's been ugly.
Just murmurs. And the last one, How do you get a guy to last longer with beautiful babies?
Okay, you didn't write anything. There's nothing fucking written on that card. That's just
It was
your
from
question.
a fan. It was from a fan.
That's just his question, Mike.
They need to last long on their own. You take enough Viagra, you can't feel anything anymore. So,
Oh.
you know.
And how long do you gotta have? There's another rumor, probably not even real, but how long do you have to kind of hold back on coming before you come to a set? To get
prior to coming to the set?
Yeah, is that a thing? Like I've heard you have to hold it for weeks before you come, so you can get the money shot first and then kind of work backwards.
And especially if you make your living as a male performer, you're probably ejaculating every day. You would have to. That's part of your job. So you're not sitting there for 2 weeks going, I can't touch it. I want to make sure it's a big one. You're not doing that.
Not a thing. Okay.
No,
I want to clear that out.
It's completely routine. And like I said, especially with the male talent, because it's all the same guys, and I've been using all the same guys for years, and it's just like I don't direct anything anymore, really. All I do is say, depending on the project, but for the most part, like today, I was like, please read this voiceover about how inappropriate your stepfather is. Okay, excellent. Now we've got that down. Now you walk in and you tell her, I don't know that we should be doing this, and then she goes, why? Mom's not home. And then you act a little more hesitant because, you should act a little hesitant. You're a fucking stepfather, This child's emotional and spiritual growth is in your hands. Anyway, and then I say, all right, now you guys can go do whatever you want. And then the guys at that point effectively direct the scene. I'm just with the camera and I know what shots I need to get. And they know where I'm going to be and they know they have to move their leg when this is going on and, all this other stuff. So. It's very routine.
All right, Mike. So what's the plan for you going forward? What's the plan for the future?
Odds are I'm going to be homeless, and/or once I'm homeless, I'm going to call up my cousin Richard. His family's got a lot of money, so I'm probably going to go to them with some hat in hand sympathy stuff when I can no longer make a living doing this. Hopefully not, but we'll see.
You can come help me direct. You can give me fucking all your knowledge. I can be your son, quote unquote.
Son, here. No, I don't. I'm just going to keep working until I can figure out how to not do it anymore. But right now, especially living in LA, it's the most expensive place in the fucking world to live. So if I was living in wherever, I would be very well off. But to live here and do this, it's like, you have to make 150 grand to be middle class here. You know what I mean? It's very, it's very tough.
Is there anywhere else? You said something about Montreal. I think they're just the producers, right?
Yeah, no, they're the big porn companies are based out of Montreal.
So there's nowhere else you could live and be successful in.
Well, you can shoot in Florida. There's a market in Florida, and Florida's, I've been to Florida several times. I like it there. It's in LA, in Vegas, mostly in LA though. Porn's just always been here, right? So the infrastructure for it is here. So I have to shoot based on what I'm contracted to do. Every single month I have to shoot 36 scenes at least, right? So that's a lot. It means most days I have to do like 3 or 4 scenes, which again means I have to be incredibly efficient and everything else to get that done. It doesn't work like that in other places. So I would find it very frustrating to try and get shit done when it's sort of like this person might show up or we don't really know if we have a location or, I've been here so long. This is what I'm familiar with. And this is still where 90% of the business is. So, I may as well just write it out,
Awesome.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Man, we really appreciate your time. This has been fucking incredible. If we come out to LA, we'd love to just come hang out for a day or something like that if we have the time. But
I'll just set design. Fuck it.
Yeah, we both have background in film. We could help out a little bit just for a day.
The only difference now is before you walk onto the set, you have to fucking get a coronavirus test. But
Yeah.
How have you adapted to that before we leave?
I just do that. I just every 48 hours, I got to go get my fucking nose swabbed, and then I go to work.
Yeah.
I mean, quite honestly, it's been the same argument. They used to talk about HIV and porn. It's like, oh, it's so dangerous. It's actually not, because everybody gets tested all the time, right?
Yeah.
You go pick up a girl at a bar, or a girl go pick up a guy at a bar. You don't get to see, can I see your less than 14-day full panel STD? You know, I mean, do you, like you get to see that in porn, right? So same thing with coronavirus, even though cases are going fucking nuts everywhere, everybody that's working has to get tested every 2 days. In mainstream Hollywood, I believe a lot of companies are making you test like before you walk on set now, right? So I feel safer than the general population. I feel safer on a porn set than I do at the fucking grocery store, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Yes, it's a fucking shit show.
Yeah, totally. So
you heard it here first, folks. Porn sets are the safest place in the world right now.
Right. I mean, you can still possibly step on a nail or something. I'm not saying they're, but, you probably won't get coronavirus. Is all I'm saying.
Nah, just a broken dick from reverse cowgirl. That's
that'll happen too. I think I'd rather have coronavirus. But,
All right. On behalf of the Bresh Crew podcast and my co-host Mark Gwynn, we'd like to thank you, Director Mike Quasar, for joining the Bresh Crew podcast. Tune in on the next one.
You can follow me on Twitter if you want.
Oh yeah, I wanted to promote that your newest film you're proud of that you want to kind of promote.
Just follow me on Twitter.
Twitter.
Just at Mike Quasar, Quasar on Twitter. That's all I'm promoting.
All right. We'll plug the link right here.
All right.
All right. Again, Mike, thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care, guys.
All right.
Thanks for watching. Since you're here, why not take the time to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell. Also check out Bresh Crew on Spotify, Spreaker, TikTok, and Instagram. And that's all I got.